morning and good afternoon and good evening, everybody. I come prepared today with copious notes thanks to Ken, who is my personal advisory committee and keeps me on the straight and narrow, which is not an easy task, I tell you. First, I want to tell you that Janie Ball is not going to be here today and will not be here for several weeks. And she asked me to share the information openly that she's having double bypass surgery and she's meeting with her surgeons today. And she's bringing a very clear-headed, intelligent friend with her to take copious notes and ask all the questions, because, you know, when you're sitting and getting that kind of information, you sometimes don't hear everything clearly. And Janie wanted us to know that this assignment and being part of this group has meant so much to her, because she gets a chance to share her talent and the information that she knows so well in terms of media and the Facebook pages and all of that social media stuff. And she wanted us to know how she has loved being part of the birth of this and will be back for sure. That is her goal, and I wished her well for all of us. She did not seem nervous. She just is looking forward to having more energy again. And I said, and you might actually have thoughts you have not had in a long time with 2 blockages. So be prepared for that. So she is grateful for our company and that she's able to help us in any way she can. I will keep us informed because she promised to keep me informed. So Ken had a really good idea, and we have put it up into graphic, and that is that we are on a journey to figure out where we're going and how we're going to get there. And each step we take has to be thoughtful and mindful and keep us in the right direction. And so I think for the fact that we really started thinking about this and having our first meeting only 5 months ago or so, I think we have done a lot and we know what we have to do. And I'm going to lay out here some of the progress reports and some of the blanks that still need to be filled in, but we're trying to put together a really good roadmap for this journey. And so we have been around for just a little while, and we took the first few months to determine how we were going to build the membership and what we were going to think about as we took our first steps.
Pardon me for interrupting, but for those of us who are here for the first time, would you restate the purpose of the group and goals, that sort of foundational information?
Yes, absolutely. We, as far as we know, are the only group on the planet so far who has taken on post-polio syndrome advocacy. So our goal, and we will write a mission statement that we will present to all of you in the next weeks. Our mission is to build awareness that we exist, that post-polio syndrome exists. We want to be the go-to for resources. We want to teach people how to speak to doctors, because there are no real post-polio specialists. It's all medicine, and we have to teach the neurologists and the people who specialize in muscles what we have and how they need to help us manage our post-polio syndrome. And so our goal is always to give out the right information and make sure that it is clear, meaningful, and actionable. And so far, that's where we are. We will put together the mission statement. So while we are thinking about this, and because we are purely dedicated to advocacy and all of that and what that means, we need to build a structure. And the structure that we have talked about is that we will have a steering committee, which we have, and there's 9 people on that steering committee, the people who started this, and we do have people from other continents on that committee. And then we're going to be setting up an advisory board, and those people hopefully will take on certain of the projects that we know that we need to fill in. And there will be specialty committees as well. Janie had put up a Facebook page, and right now it's limited. You can go and ask to join it, and things will be posted there. We're going to ask her if we can open it up to anybody who wants to be part of this and get the information. We did it as a closed group at the beginning just to see how it was functioning, and it seemed to be functioning well. Those of us in the steering committee signed on, and indeed we got what we wanted from it. But now I'm going to ask Janie if we can open that up. There is a LinkedIn page. We have a WhatsApp group so that we can talk to each other without going through all the email and be direct, which we love. And then we have plans to develop a website that will be forthcoming. And Janie wants to be part of that for sure. And we're hoping that in 6 to 8 weeks, she will be back. And so here is a little bit of a progress report. We all are volunteers, and we give as much time as we have, and sometimes we fall behind, like me today, asking Mona and Ken to give me the link to the Zoom because it was buried in some emails. And we don't want to rush into anything. We want to be very mindful. We want to be careful. We want to do everything to support the mission of being advocacy. Originally, we have a marketing committee that we will be forming, and we will talk about the people who want to be on that, and people will sign up for that. And that will be part of what we're doing today. We're going to ask people to, and I think Ken is going to speak to that, how we're going to ask people to please tell us what it is that you would like to be part of as I go through all of the lists. And again, we're all volunteers. We ask you to do the best you can in the time frame that you have. And so we need to develop a marketing plan. And Janie was going to be part of that, and we'll be back to do that. But we need to reach out to as many people as we can, because you and I know there are polio survivors who are struggling with syndrome that don't even know that we exist yet. And we will make that known as part of our marketing. Business development, I'm going to take on, and the first task for me and for the people who want to join me in that is to come up with the mission statement and whatever plans you want to make for next year. And we have been talking about putting together literally a webinar, and maybe doing it with the Australian group, and talk about all of the symptoms, and talk about how to talk to doctors, and talk about how we manage our lives. Plus, we want to reach out to all of the polio support groups, and there are many. All you have to do is do that in the search bar on the Facebook, and you will see so many come up. And some of them call themselves Post-Polio Syndrome, but they really, they appear to be more of a support group without any meaningful, actionable information that people can use. And we're going to try to bring them all in to our group without diminishing them. People need support. They need to talk to each other, but we want to give them the information that they have been lacking. John McFarlane is reaching out to the people who want to be part of our advocacy team, and we will ask him in a moment. John, do you want to fill in anything while I mentioned your name?
Yes, I sent out an email the other day. I've had some replies already. If I haven't replied to you yet, it's because there is literally so much going on in the background that it's just taking time. I know, Wes, you've had one today. You got a reply, and I sent another one out to Marcy, and I've got to send one out to Ruth Stevenson as well, and to various other people. So I will get those out as quickly as possible, giving you more information on what's happening and where we're going with the advocacy training.
Mm-hmm. Ken said he was, thank you so much, John. Ken said he was going to take on the advocacy training, and that will be in conjunction with John and all the people that want to join him on that team. It's essential that we have people who go out there and advocate, who are fully informed and who know everything that they need to know should the questions pop up. And it's going to be a very important part of our outreach. And then there is Yep. Somebody want to speak?
Reg,
Yes,
you need
yes,
to
may I
unmute
ask,
it.
the
Please.
composition of our membership at the moment, is it all post-polio syndrome sufferers, or do you have some people who are free of post or polio and any post-polio syndrome? Because I think the latter group probably may be more mobile and may be able to do broader advocacy than some of the sufferers would be.
Because we probably will be doing most of this virtually, I think we're going to be okay with that, but we definitely have some people who are not post-polio syndrome people. And I think that's important because
I can answer Reg's question. It's a mix, Reg, of both people that are in the group. It's people who all have a passion. It's not a requirement that you have the PPS, but I don't. But I do have a passion for the subject. So it's a mix of people, and what we're looking for too is to try to make sure we get people from. We'd like to have somebody from every country in the world. That's basically our goal, to have somebody from each group. In particular, I just came across a young woman in Africa. I forget the name of the country. I'm sorry, and she's like 20 years old, and she has polio. And it would be good to have some young people in this group also that are doing that, so they can speak to young people that have the polio too. So we're looking for a good diversity of people in this group.
Mhm.
I was interested, Ken, in do you have people with very high visibility in Rotary who can probably penetrate areas which you may be less able to do by yourselves? I mean, I've got a limited access, as you know. And I also noticed that the job you've picked up, mainly of training, I think there's a dearth of materials really about it. And I've shared with you just recently a couple of reports, which I think are very illuminating, in which they give you a lot of information that will be very useful in the advocacy forum. And I would encourage, someone on the group, perhaps you, develops that.
Okay, great. I appreciate it, because certainly part of training is going to be learning the facts. So that's going to be an important part of that whole thing. But to answer your question, yes, we do have connections with people all the way to the top in Rotary at this point, but we don't have enough. So we're still working on that. It's a good strategy, Reg.
Good.
Thank you, Reg, for that. Presentations. I had spoken to John Nanny, who has a presentation that he gives when he does his talks. And I'm going to get a copy of that to see if I can integrate it with mine. I usually don't do any audio visual when I speak, but it would be wonderful to have that and add it to my presentation, which used to stop at thank you all for all the work you've done for raising money and donating time to the eradication effort. And now I can go a step further and say, and here's what you need to know about those of us who are still struggling with the late effects of polio. Just because we in this hemisphere are a dying population, we have to pay attention to all the young ones who will be struggling with the same thing 30 to 40 years from now in other countries. So I get a chance to push that story, that storyline, which I can't wait to do. So if anybody has been put together any kind of a presentation that they have used before, we would certainly love to see it. I think we would ask if we could sort of integrate whatever you have to whatever we have here. We are talking about a speakers team. For example, I just got a recommendation from from Rotary International, from the media person. And it would be wonderful if we had a list of people that I could refer to her and say, anytime you need anything for any press, here are the people and here's our list. And so we're going to be assembling that. That is, we haven't figured out exactly what that looks like yet and how we will know the right people to put on that speakers team, but we will definitely do that. And the support group summit, which is something that Ken and I think is really important to think about for next year. We want to showcase the support groups. We also want them to understand that we are not going to diminish them in any way. We will enhance them. And we want to look for support from those groups and to maybe participate and maybe sponsor us in I'm looking for here, a summit. I couldn't find that right word for the summit. And so I'll be looking for people to help me plan what that could look like. And of course, that could be global. We'll find the right time and that could be global. But I think it would be wonderful to be able to be the figurehead of all of this and to have all of the people come to us as the go-to. We would like to think about a joint meeting with the Australian Polio Group and PPF and our group together. And Ken, can you speak a little bit about why Australia?
Well, certainly Australia and other groups like the European group too, but Australia in particular has done a lot of good work on what they're doing there and in getting the word out in that area. And they have met with us several times, and they have expressed to us an interest in doing a joint meeting. Now, of course, their time frame is totally different than Eastern United States. So it would probably be an early evening event here and an early morning event there for them. We've already kind of talked a little bit about a potential outstanding speaker who's an expert on PPS to talk to both groups. So we're in touch with them, and we just need to work out some of the specifics how it's going to work. But they have a good sized group and a very active group, and in our goal to be global, it's a good, makes a lot of sense to do that kind of stuff. And plus New Zealand there too. We can get New Zealand involved in it.
I referred to this earlier, but we are going to set up a link for members, for anybody that joins our Zooms, to submit ideas and suggestions and thoughts, and that link will be shared in social media and in our newsletter. I think it's really important that we get constant feedback of who we are and where we're going, so that nobody accidentally stays off mute and tells us this is the most boring group they have ever been in, Ken. So, so we want to be sure that we're doing it right, and we need the feedback from all of you, because you've all been on the front line of doing whatever you do. So please know we will be setting up a link to that. And we're talking about a video promotional piece as well, that we can sort of drop in whenever we need to. All of those things are real and not hard to do. We talked about a podcast. I just did one in Manitoba. It's very easy to sit and interview somebody and talk to them and have it available to anybody that wants to listen. It's another way of getting the facts out and the truth out and the plans that you. Somebody need to speak? Okay. Talking points. I saw a lot of things coming through on the email, and I think that's going to be essential, because you never know when you can get a sound bite or a press hit, and having all the talking points ready to roll. And I think we will have those posted on our Facebook page as well. And then we're looking for people who are writers and who would like to write some articles for us for our newsletter, or on our Facebook page or LinkedIn. And it has to be about our advocacy and education, any of that. And some of you probably already have ideas because you've written newsletters for your support groups. And we would love to see that and be able to add that to the mix. And those are the things that I wanted to bring you up to date on with the progress. So some things are in the works, some things will be in the works, but we definitely will be going forward every time we meet, Anybody have anything that they want to add to this?
I see Alex Vaughn in Dover, Delaware, USA. I see an opportunity for some education, having consumed everything or heard everything that you've said, madam, because I'm just learning about post-polio syndrome myself. I'm 70 years old. I had polio when I was 18 months old in about 1954. And it was before the Salk vaccine was approved. I understand enough about it to know that polio has affected each person differently. And I happen to be personal friends with John Nanny, who you mentioned before. He lives just 20 minutes up the road from me. We've gotten to know each other through Rotary International's Polio Plus program. And John is in a fully articulated wheelchair because of the way he was affected. I walk with a substantial limp to the right side because my right lower quadrant of my physiology was only affected. So I know that about myself because I've been able to compare what I've seen and heard John say in conversation. I wonder if there might not be an opportunity to educate people about some of the variables that can affect different polio survivors.
Okay, we'll look for a speaker for that for us. Okay.
Yeah, if I could just say, Alex, that's one of our goals to do that. We're talking about educating the medical profession, but we're also talking about educating people who have polio about post-polio syndrome, and that's one of our goals to do that. Extremely important, not only in places like North America, but also in other countries like Asia and African countries, in which there are less knowledge there of what's going on. So it's a major goal to put together fact sheets and videos and things like that on that subject.
Thank you, Ken.
Our next speaker is going to be a physical therapist. And is that on the 13th? I have forgotten. Yes, on the 13th, we have a physical therapist who's going to be our guest speaker that day. And I bet we're going to learn a lot as well.
Tatiana from Brazil.
I have a question. Here, hand up from Crippen.
Hi, yeah, sorry. I just want to say how I find it really striking. I was with Stefan earlier this year at the EPU conference, but also hearing conversations I've had in this sort of groups about how similar challenges are across the globe in terms of polio PPS matters. Mainly, nobody knows about polio PPS. The doctors don't know about it. So, and a lot of patients don't know these organizations are there to help them. So I think there's so much similarities. I think this is wonderful that people are coming together to work together. Is it okay if I just mention a couple of things we're doing at BPF to help the community? One of the things, and my colleague Francis Quinn is on this call as well, we started working on is something called an optimum healthcare pathway for healthcare professionals to understand how to, when they're presented with a polio patient, how to manage and deal with their condition moving forward. So that's something we developed it quite at the starting point of development. And I say the challenges are similar across the world. So how you treat polio in America, Australia, New Zealand, Kenya, India will be the same as PPS. So I thought I'd just share that with you. And the second thing is on October 26th, I'm organising a Zoom cafe. We've got some international organisations talking at the Zoom cafe just to coincide with World Polio Day on the 24th of October. And if you don't mind, I can share the link in this group. So people, who anybody who wants to join that World Polio Zoom cafe and hear from other polio organisations, there's a few from Europe and one from America get involved. I'm happy to share the link. If you don't mind me sharing the link.
Please,
Thank you.
please, please. Anybody else?
Can you hear me? Ken Hurst up here in the corner.
Yep, Ken.
Yeah, calling from my car. I chimed in today through Kim Smith from polio coordinator in polio in Canada through March of Dimes. And my other interest is from a Rotary perspective, because I'm also part of Rotary, and we put a major polio a polio day. It's not actually on the 24th, it's on October the 20th. We've been doing it for 5 years, and I could send you the link to
Sure.
that day. It's an hour and a half presentation, and it does get as high as a video link from Jennifer Jones and a few other people from Rotary International. Valerie Wafer was on it last year. I can't remember all the people. Bob Scott is always on it, who's very much involved in Rotary Polio, as Ken probably knows. My name is also Ken. So just wanted to say that's the reason I'm here. And I'm very much, and I've also, we do a polio day flag raising in our community in Ajax, Ontario, Canada. And we always invite the post-polio people to that flag raising, and then invite them back for our Rotary luncheon. So yeah, I'm really happy I've connected, and hope to do this on a monthly basis.
Well, thank you so much. And please share our information with the polio survivors that you identify. Many people have yet to learn about us, and sometimes don't even know what they're experiencing in terms of post-polio syndrome. And so we want to be able to help them as well.
Yeah, I'm actually going on another call at 1 o'clock with a kind of a smaller group. Durham, I live in Durham, Durham region in Ontario, and they have a group all of their own that meet on the last Thursday of every month. So I'm also going on that, and you know, one of the greatest things, there's good things and bad things that have come from COVID. You know, one of the good things that have come from COVID is this avenue of communication for polio survivors around the world.
Agreed.
You know, just to share their experiences and their stories.
Thank you. That's very true. I feel the same way, that I get to speak to Rotarians all across the country, you know, from the comfort of my own chair. So I do appreciate that. I miss going in person a lot. I used to do that all the time. That's fun, but yeah, this is terrific. This is just terrific. Thank you for telling us about your group.
Okay.
I know Carla would
I know
like
we
to-
have a question from Carla. Yep, go ahead. John, why don't you monitor that? You're better than me. So Carla.
Carla?
Had to unmute myself. I'm in California. Is this information about the advocacy group going out to the Rotary meetings throughout the world that we are meeting? And this is information that they at some point may want to tap into?
Agree, and that's part of our goal. You know, as I said, we wanted to do everything step by step to be sure that when we did that, that we had all of the information and all of our ducks lined up very carefully, so that whoever contacted us, we all had the same information and we all had the same goal. So the answer is yes. We know a lot of people at Rotary International, and we're pretty sure we will be able to get plugged into all of that, Carla. Thank you.
A few of the Rotary groups near where I live have zero idea about this, is why
Well, right. We know that, and we're going to change that.
Okay.
Can I interrupt again?
Yeah.
As the Chief Information Officer for the End Polio Now coordinators, I regularly communicate with the End Polio Now coordinators. I'm presently doing it on a weekly basis, and I have for the last 3 months been keeping them advised of the formation of the Post-Polio Syndrome Group. I find it a little bit difficult because my remit is polio eradication, but I'm gradually feeding information that goes out to the End Polio Now coordinators, who are established for each Rotary region, and they're in contact with all the Rotary Foundation district chairs and all the Polio Plus district chairs. So I think gradually the existence of this endeavour is being understood. I'm not getting any much reaction and no commitments, but the information is going out to them.
Thank you. That's exactly how it's going to have to grow. As I said, just because we here are an older population, we have to think about the 5-year-old girl in the Cameroons or Malawi who will be struggling with this in 30 to 40 years. So we must pay attention to the legacy that we will leave. And I think that's an interesting way to put it. You know, it's not just about us today, it's about the legacy. So thank you, Reg, for letting us know you have an in, a big in. Anybody else? Is that Julia? Hi,
Maureen.
Julia.
Hi. I just wanted to say that this morning I reached out because my daughter's father-in-law is a Rotarian in Burlington, but he reached out to me for a different matter. So I sent a text to him commenting about our meeting today, and there was zero, like he really had never heard of it. And the communication where I explained it, the communication ended up with him now going back. He wanted to go back to Rotarian colleagues to have a discussion. So maybe the advocacy actually starts at the simple spot.
Yes, it does.
Of connection.
Mm-hmm. And if he would like anybody to speak at his next meeting, the answer is yes.
Right. Okay.
The answer is always yes.
Okay. The other thing I just wanted to say, and I'm just not sure where I fit in at this point, but sometimes because I got it in 1968 from the vaccine, it flies against end polio vaccination. And yes. So, you know, you probably don't want me in front of, because like, I mean, I agree with vaccinations. I'm not against them, but I mean, I think we need to consider that because it's happening. It did happen to some people through that era. And yeah, and it's been super, I can assure you, super tough to be recognized and acknowledged as having had anything, right from parents denying to doctors and society and everything else, right?
Do you have PPS right now?
I believe that I do. I have certainly, I recovered fully. I was fully paralyzed, but I recovered what I would call fully, but I didn't recognize that, you know, I couldn't cross my legs and I couldn't run the same as everybody else. But now, as I've gone through life and had 2 children, you know, certain things started to happen. And at this point now, muscles are starting to get weak and I'm getting tired. And thank goodness for groups like this to say, okay, I'm not nuts. Okay.
No, you're not nuts. We're grateful that you're one of us. We're sorry you're one of us, but we're grateful you're one of us.
Well, I appreciate, but I'm certainly willing to do anything to help, whether that's speaking or connecting, but.
Understood.
Okay,
thank you. When that link goes out, you decide which part of this, you know, okay. You're part of the education without question, you know, people need to understand that.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, John.
I'll just make a quick comment. This group represents, this is really to answer the last speaker, this group represents all people with polio and post-polio syndrome. It doesn't matter whether it's vaccine derived, whether it came from the mess up in Cutler back in California all those years ago, or wherever it is. The fact that people have got polio is the defining thing. And yes. You are part of the worldwide polio family, which are all looking to do the same thing and to get through into one area. We are a worldwide family, all facing the same problems. We can, and like any family, we are there to support each other. Doesn't matter how you got it, or what's happened, or where, or what continent you're on, or what religion you are, or anything else. It is a polio family, full stop, nothing else.
Thank you, John. And Maureen, you want to say
Maureen
something?
wants to come in.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. What a wonderful presentation, Ina. Wonderful. And to Ken as well. So my question again is this, what's going on in California in the end of October? There's something going on. I would very much like to get it in our newsletter. It's a polio awareness type of symposium that's going on at Touro University. I guess it's in Southern California.
No, it's in
Where-
Northern California.
Northern, okay, wherever it is, it's a part of Touro University. And last meeting, I guess somebody in this group gave me a link, but there's no contact information, no phone number, no email address. I mean, if somebody wanted to go and participate, you know, there's
All
no
right,
information out there.
Okay, Carla, do you know more about that, or do you have a link to the event?
I don't have a link right now. I can look it up. I'll post it in a second if I find it.
Sure.
Because it's absolutely missing. Touro University is in a town called Vallejo.
Yes.
And that's Vallejo. It's in above San Francisco, about an hour, on what's called Mare Island. The meeting is from 10 to 2 that day. Lunch is included so far. And it's sponsored, I believe, by Northern California Rotaries. And whoever's in charge with that is lacking, you know, public information on it, except that I know it's happening because I've seen a post with very little information, and I will see if I can pull that up here in a minute if you want.
All right, well, that's helpful. TOURO, they're a chain of universities, and they have campuses all over the country, but I don't know what the goal of this meeting is.
I think it's information only. But the San Francisco Bay Area Polio Support Group is doing a big display and some kind of a presentation during it, but their last meeting failed because they had Zoom problems. So.
Yeah. Big problems.
All right, if we can do that, and then I'll get it out.
You know, I had reached out to this Gary Chow, who was in that San Francisco's Zoom meeting probably over a year ago. And Professor Mike Kosov, that I know you know, Ina, he was instrumental in getting the venue for them to have this meeting. And I've reached out to him and someone else several times, and nothing. He passed me on to somebody else that I found out when I talked to this somebody else, and that somebody else never got back. And then I've also reached out to that somebody else again, and nothing. And I've seen the one link, maybe Carla, might be the same link.
There's something in chat now that Crippen just put in. You might want to check that link to Visit Vallejo and see if it's there while we're talking.
I'm going to click on it. Okay, so I just clicked on it, and
It is there.
A phone
Good.
number?
No, of course not.
No, there's nothing. Doesn't
And
say October
doesn't-
23rd, 10 to 2, and the address.
And there's no contact person.
No,
listed.
It says more information to follow. at the bottom.
More information coming soon. I mean, I don't understand coming soon. It's in a matter of weeks now.
Yeah, it is.
And nobody here knows about that.
No.
And you know what? The
Maureen, would you
purpose.
follow up on that and just send us and send me an email on that? We'll send it out if you find anything, because you are you're a junkyard dog when it comes to this. You don't let go, and I love that about you. You will find out whatever we need to know.
Who are you talking about,
You.
Ina? Me or Carla? I'm on the other side of the states here.
Doesn't matter. Between the two of you, we're going to find out what this is all about. So thank you. Share it with us when you find out, honey. If you're good, you don't let go.
I'm a pain in the neck that way.
And I love that about.
There was one other comment that the purpose of their meeting is they apparently have a low vaccination rate in that area. And that's supposedly, as I understand, the purpose of that meeting, symposium, whatever it is.
All right. Well, we're going to find out.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
low
honey.
vaccination rate is not in Vallejo. It's in the San Francisco Bay Area as a whole. Vallejo actually has a pretty good one because it's a rather, it's an impacted community in terms of socioeconomic issues and stuff.
Mhm.
But Marin County, Napa County, all those have
Mhm.
very poor vaccination rates.
Vaccination rates. John, can you answer Samuel's question about PPS? He's in the chat. Did you see his question there?
Trying to find it.
It's the last one that was just.
Samuel, please, how can I identify a person gets PPS?
Mhm.
Right. The one thing, and if Carol was here, she'd back me up on this one. A person develops PPS. It's not as has been as has been reported in some places recently in Europe, that this is a re-emergence of the virus in the person's body. That is a fallacy. It is a diagnosis of exclusion. In basic terms, if you actually go through the whole thing, the old way of looking at it was, did you have a case of paralytic polio? Yes. Have you gone through all the other tests? Do you have fibromyalgia? Do you have ME? Do you have MND, Gulag, ALS, or whatever it is? And it's rather like Sherlock Holmes. When Sherlock Holmes goes through and he gets to the end of it, he turns around and he says, when everything possible has been excluded, it must be the impossible, which is the one that goes through. Now, this is the case with PPS. PPS is also is caused by the further breakdown of motor neurons. This is where, when you get paralytic polio to start with, it attacks the anterior horns on the spinal column, and it can go into, and quite often does go into, the brain, which is where the word poliomyelitis comes from, because it refers to the Greek meaning grey matter, which is your brain. And what then happens is that quite often the nerves alongside a muscle who has had its motor nerves destroyed actually branches out into it. Now, I've got an example on my hand, on this hand. If I hold some fingers, they work. Took those two. If I'm actually holding the others, they all work, and they all work at the same time, because the nerve from my index finger and my next finger has branched out into the other two areas. At the end of the day, what then goes through, if I can put this bluntly, what then goes through is the motor neurons break down, and you lose further motor neurons, and you get to the situation whereby they get tired and they pack up. The ones that have branched pack up and they go away, and therefore you develop what is then being classified as post-polio syndrome. But it is exclusion. You can't stick a needle in somebody, pull something out of them and say, right, it's not like testing for leukemia or one of the or a cancer, which you can pick up. It is purely a diagnosis of exclusion. And the doctors need to know what they're looking for. And that's what some of the advocacy that will be done from here will actually give them. They will give them the information. They need to have the information as to where to go, what to look at, and who to get at. There are still doctors who turn around and say it doesn't exist. Which case, I think I was speaking to somebody else on one of the Zooms or a comment, and I said, well, just ask them whether they've got the International Classification of Diseases, either edition 10 or 11. Tell them to look it up. They sign up to this international classification is looked at by governments and agreed by governments. We've had Mexico turn around before and say it doesn't exist, yet they actually sign up to the protocols. It does exist, it is there. And if you really want to have the history lesson, first described by a French doctor in 1875. So it's been around a long time.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, there is no blood test.
Thank you, John, for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's no blood test. I wish there was. Everybody would then understand what it is, but there isn't. And everything that John said is exactly what doctors need to know. We have to rule out lots of other parts, and then we're left with the obvious. And you don't have to have had paralytic polio in order to struggle with PPS now. So that's another piece of the puzzle as well.
Can I just put an extra comment in on that? There are cases of asymptomatic polio, yes, where the people they haven't had anything. They've had perhaps a little bit of weakness at one stage or other, and they never knew that they had polio, and it's never been diagnosed. But they are now cropping up more and more in asymptomatic cases, where you go through and you can actually do it. Okay, there is a test that can be done to find out whether you had polio or not, the titter test, but somewhat painful, but you go through that. But the asymptomatic cases are in fact appearing more and more around the world and actually being recognized, certainly in Europe and certainly in North America, Canada and such like.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick question. I got associated through the March of Dimes in Canada. Is there a major group, charity, whatever, like the March of Dimes in the U.S. that supports the post-polio survivors?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
They left us. March of Dimes.
They went on to birth defects, and they thought, oh, polio's over. That's the end of that. The Canadian March of Dimes was the only one that stuck with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Carla wants to come. Carla, do you want to come back in?
I will come back in. I'm texting 2 Rotarians to ask who are local. I'm only 20 minutes from where this meeting is going to be on October 23rd to ask them to send me a flyer for it. So that's all. Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't mean to keep my hand up.
That's okay.
Go
Thank
away.
you. Thank you. Anything else? Everybody's got their questions answered for today. I want to repeat when the next meeting is, and that's going to be with Tatiana, a physical therapist from South America, and that's October 13th, and that will be at our very same time. And then we have made an executive decision, Ken and I, that for November and December meetings, we will have only one a month, And that will be the second Thursday when we have a speaker. So the fourth Thursday, we will not have our open meeting, and that's for November and December. But we will continue to have our speaker on the second Thursday of those months.
I know, if I can just make a comment. Sorry, I'm meeting people still coming in. We got a comment in the chat from Lana. She's in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe. Yeah, and she wants to get involved in this, and we certainly welcome that. Should be talking with her about her ideas, how we can get more involved in that country, in that area. And she's a Rotarian president there. Just a couple of thoughts. The name of this meeting today was a journey to awareness, and it's important theme right at the moment because we're on the journey to awareness. We'll get to awareness, but we're on that journey and need to put some things together on that. And as far as the committees that you had mentioned, the marketing committee, the business development committee, the presentation committee, all that, we've already have about 30 people signed up for those committees, and we certainly, and letters have gone out, and meetings are going to be planned in the next week or two for all those committees, and to get things going on that. And certainly in the marketing committee, that's going to be essential to do a plan for the next year, maybe next many years, on how we're going to get the word out on that. And certainly Rotary is a part of getting that word out. And then on the business development committee, which Ina's going to be a part of, we're going to work on developing a business plan, which is important. We've got a mission statement, and Constantine will tell you a SWOT analysis and a goals for the next year and next 5 years for what we should be accomplishing, so we can measure our accomplishments. So anybody wants to be on those committees, it's going to be ongoing, and we'll be meeting on a consistent basis to try to get things moving. I think the marketing and the business plan are probably the two keys at this point to get those things done. And then anybody who's not on our mailing list, please put your email in the chat, and we'll make sure that you're on the mailing list. I'll put them all in this afternoon. So thank you.
And when do you think we might have a link where if people want to sign up for something or need to reach out to us? How will they do that?
I have that. I will. I'm posting it in the newsletter, so people can have an options on what they can do. I think George, you would ask for a little more detail on what each of those committees are going to do, so we'll provide that. So I will send it out again in the newsletter. I'll put it in our social media platforms, so it's there. And as you had mentioned too, we're going to set up a little suggestion box kind of thing where people can go in there and say, I think you should do this, I think you shouldn't do this, that kind of stuff. So we'll set that up as a link also, so people can go in there and make their comments on there. We're open to, we want to be transparent on everything we're doing here.
Our goal is to embrace everybody who shows up and give them an opportunity to reach us, and then we know how to reach back to you. So the newsletter is a great way of doing that, and then we will know. You'll know how to reach us at any time. Everybody set? Philomena, good to
we got Julie. Julie has a hand up. Julia has a hand up, sorry.
That's okay. I just had a question that, do we have is there a logo or something that is available to us to use? I know some of our support groups have discussed this, that if there was a logo that we could kind of grab in and make post-polio awareness stickers for the back of the car or buttons or something. Like with,
yeah,
it already exists.
We're working on that. No, not yet. No, we're working on that. Debbie Vance, if any of those knows her from Canada, who's very good at doing that kind of stuff, is helping us develop a logo. Yes, we will have something like that.
Perfect.
Constantine has her hand up. Constance has her hand up.
That's all right. You can call me Connie. I answer to most anything. I just want to confirm Facebook presence, because for people our age and even younger, Facebook continues to be a social media resource that people will tap into, both for information and also for groups, identities.
Mhm.
So
We
to
do have
maintain that.
one. We do
But-
have one. And right now it was closed, and we're going to talk about opening. We're opening it up because we just did it at the beginning so that the steering committee would be able to test it out. But I'm going to check with Janie about opening it up, and we do have a really pretty page holder there.
Okay, because the point of it is a lot of the questions and a lot of the, I had polio in 19 whatever, and this is what it affected me, becomes a part of the sharing of that. But additionally, one of the more valuable pieces from this group is the information dissemination aspect. So as you're talking about your various committees, as you're talking about the various projects and the events and all of these other things going on, that's where dissemination of that kind of information becomes critical, not to mention dissemination of information on the keynote speakers, videos, assorted other things. That's a powerful resource. And for our age group, that seems to be much more popular than TikTok.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Absolutely. I think that
I agree.
Janie's got that all in her plans to do that. And if I can just mention one other thing, you had touched upon the support group summit that we're planning on doing, maybe January, maybe February. It's our mission to be a support group for the support groups. So it's our mission to direct people to the support groups up there. So the idea of the summit would be to have support groups from around the world join us on a webinar about what's the word, and be there and tell everybody what they do and have opportunity for people to ask about them. So we're hoping to have the European Polio Union and the Australian group and a number of other groups help us put that together in January or February.
Mm-hmm.
Ina, can I add something to what Ken said? That
Sure.
goes back to what we're saying with webinar, with Australia, maybe EPU and others. It goes back to actually doing networking. You're getting it out into a big network, and it goes through and it actually just expands. And it goes back to what I was saying. It's a big family, and families support each other. And if we can get that going in that way, we can provide the tools to support groups without reinventing the wheel.
Right. And important for them to know we're not there to dilute them and their meaning to all the people who sign on, but we're here to give them another added dimension to their lives.
Yeah, it's a way of going through and not diminishing what the support groups do, like George does in Scotland and Stefan does in Europe, and Crippen does in the UK and such like. It's a way of actually giving the support groups the support they need by exchanging information across the world and things coming up which nobody has thought about before. There's only four questions in the world, as they said: how, what, when, and why. And those questions can be normally answered, even for the support groups, from the experiences of others around the world.
Gotcha. Well, all right. So we're on the path, and step by step, we will get to where we're going, and we will do it in an honorable way with integrity, and make sure that we gather everybody in our family together. True? Anybody else? And if not, I will see you on the 13th when we have a lovely speaker who will talk about physical therapy for post-polio.
Goodbye, all.
Goodbye, all. Have a sweet, sweet weekend.
Yes.